Welcome to the Rewild Your Business podcast. So good to have you here. And actually, I'm incredibly glad you're here this week because it's that time of year for us to dive into planning. It's like everyone and their dog is talking about planning. But here's the thing. How many of us actually do this well? How many of us do this well and then use it to inform what we're really going to achieve the following year? I feel like so many people just pay lip service to planning their year with intention. And I feel like it can make such a big difference for our businesses if we start that beautiful, fresh, new sheet of a new year with real intention that we've put thought behind. So this is part one of planning on purpose. So we're going to do 2 episodes. So in this first episode, we're going to look at the planning process and what I believe goes into planning for the following year. In next week's episode, we're going to dive into more of the mindset around who you need to be to bring that vision to life next year. In between those 2 episodes, so this episode will be going live on, I think, the 17th of November. And then on the 20th of November, I'm actually hosting a free masterclass for the Institute of Coaching Studies. And it's called Planning on Purpose. So that's where we're going to roll up our sleeves and do the actual work that I'm talking about in this podcast episode. Okay? Hope it's all making sense. So, where the hell did this year go? Oh my God. I feel like if we're not careful, this year is just going to race past us and we're all going to be sleepwalking into 2026. It's going to hit us like a freight train. And we don't do our best work when we haven't planned and prepared properly. You know, January the 1st hits and suddenly we're all making these grand gestures about new year, new me and all of that kind of thing. And then we end up setting goals in January that, to be honest, by February have kind of evaporated into the ether. And I'm really not interested in that kind of planning. I want to help you with the process I take my private coaching clients through, my legacy clients. This is the exact process I take those clients through at the end of each year. There's a process in this. I've been doing this for a lot of years now, and I've really refined this process into something that works incredibly well. And actually in the workshop on the 20th, I will be sharing that whole process with you. So you will get the full rollout of how I take clients through a planning process for the next year. But you're also going to get a ton of value from this episode and next week's episode of the podcast, because we're going to go through some really valuable foundational stuff, right? So whether you come to the workshop or not, and I hope you will, I'm going to put the link in the show notes for you to sign up to it. It's free and we get to go through the actual process with me. But even if you don't come along to the workshop, what I'm going to share with you today is going to help you approach your planning differently. Right? Because I think that there's a ton of crap advice out there actually around business planning. And it's definitely made much more complex than it ever needs to be. There are a few things, a handful of things that are very important to do when it comes to planning your year. But it isn't all about that hustle culture of doing more and pushing harder and, you know, how big and stretching can you set your goals to be? It's not necessarily about that. It's about what do you really want? And the big question is, are you ready to do what it takes to make next year your year? And I'm emphasizing your year, not someone else's version of your year, not what Instagram is telling you your year should look like, right? Not even what I tell you your year should look like as a business coach. This needs to be your year, built from your values, built with a rhythm in mind that you want to embody as you move through next year. A pace, a feeling, a vision for your business that completely fulfills you. One thing I've learned from years of coaching really ambitious women, most of us don't ever fail because we lack strategy, right? We tend to struggle because we're following strategies that were not created by us for us, right? And so it's really important that when you're planning your year and you're thinking about everything you want to bring to life, the things you want to achieve, the goals you want to hit next year, you need to be doing that through the lens of this needs to be me doing it my way. Okay, so let's dive into this episode. Welcome to Rewild Your Business, the podcast for women doing the work their soul intended. I'm Jill Mokes. I'm an international business coach, and I'm a guide for women doing the work that matters. Rewilding your business means cutting away what doesn't belong to allow what does to thrive, finding simplicity in your work. And it's about bringing the whole of who you are to the table, whether you're building something new or finding your way back to what really matters to you. I'm so glad you're here. Let's just go into a moment about why planning actually matters. And honestly, I'm not going to turn into some sort of productivity guru. I'm no Michael Hyatt. Actually, if you haven't read his book, Free to Focus, oh my God, buy that book and do your yearly planning with that book and this podcast. You could really do worse than learning a trick or two from Michael Hyatt. He is fabulous at this stuff. So highly recommend that book, Free to Focus. I'll pop the link to that in the show notes as well. So why does planning matter? It matters because without it, you are constantly in reactive mode. Without planning, you're just going to be responding to whatever is loudest, whatever's the most urgent, whatever's popping up in your inbox that day gets to decide where your energy and attention are going. Don't get me wrong, I get it. When you're building a coaching business, there is always something that feels urgent. You know, a potential client has reached out, or there's a tech issue, or, you know, you've got so much content to create. It can feel endless. But here's the truth. Urgency is not the same as importance. And without a plan, an actual proper plan, not just a vague hope that things are going to work out, you will end up spending all your energy on the urgent things that don't actually move you towards what you want. So this is the difference between someone who is stuck in almost like a management role versus someone who is embodying a visionary CEO role, right? I see this a lot with the coaches who come to work with me in my program, which is called Mastery, because clients come to me, coaches come to me, and they are kind of exhausted. They're really overwhelmed, and they feel like they're working constantly and working really hard, but they're not actually building the business that they have in their mind, the vision that they have for their business. And when we start unpicking what's going on, it's almost always the same thing. They've been so busy reacting that they simply haven't given themselves that permission to pause and to plan with intention and to actually spend their time and place their energy where it's going to make the most difference, right? I was about to say that planning isn't about control, but you know what? It is a little bit about control. It's about creating enough structure and clarity that you can actually be present in your business. You can show up as the coach you want to be, rather than this like stressed out version of yourself that's trying to keep 100 plates spinning. So when it comes to planning with intention, planning on purpose, as I'm calling it, we actually start not by looking forward to next year. We start by looking back. And honestly, this is the bit everyone wants to skip, because by this time of year, everyone's a little bit over the year. We're all a bit over 2025 now, kind of ready for that beautiful, clean sheet of paper for January 2026. But I think it's so important that we don't do that we don't skip this piece of the planning process, which is reflecting on the year that's been. And that means facing what worked and what didn't work. It means being really honest about the goals that you set for yourself that you didn't hit. It's looking in the eye of the offers that flopped, the clients maybe that slipped through the net that you didn't land, you know? Maybe it's about promises that you made to yourself in January that you just didn't keep. And the reason that it's so important not to skip this part is that what happened this year is full of data, and data forms the foundation of the way we plan for the next year. So if you can be honest, get this unfiltered data about what actually works for you and your business. And if you don't then take the time to review that, to review what happened and what went well and what didn't go well, you are running the risk of just repeating mistakes year on year. So in my Planning on Purpose workshop, we're going to spend proper time on this because it really is foundational. In the meantime, I want to give you a few reflection prompts that you can start looking at right now. Simple things to start thinking about. The first one, what actually worked well in 2025? By that, I mean what really worked, not like what looked good on the outside. What actually felt aligned for you? What brought in revenue, money in the bank? What things did you do or try or experiment with that served your clients really brilliantly and gave you energy? You know, maybe it was a particular offer, a particular package that you sold this year. Maybe it was a new approach. Maybe it was a new coaching approach that you tried that really worked well with clients. Maybe it was finally setting some boundaries around your working hours, things like that. Think about all of the things that worked well this year and write them down. The second thing I want you to think about is what challenges did you face? And again, you know, this isn't about failures. This is about information. It's data. Were you hoping to fill a group program, for example, and maybe you really struggled to fill that group coaching program? Or maybe you finished qualifying as a coach and had all these high hopes of the number of clients you were going to work with this year, and it just didn't pan out that way. Or maybe you hit the ground running so hard in January that by March you felt absolutely burnt out and needed a couple of months to recover. Like, don't judge yourself while you're doing this. Just notice it. Just notice it and write it down and be honest. And then the third question, which is the really juicy one, is what did you learn about yourself this year? What has this year taught you about how you work best? About what you actually enjoy doing? And what has it taught you about where your strengths really lie? So maybe this year you discovered that you are just brilliant at intimate one-to-one coaching, but group programs just drain you and you don't want to do that. Or maybe you realize that you need a hell of a lot more downtime than you've been giving yourself. All of this is gold. You need this information to be able to plan effectively for next year, for a different year that brings a different result at the end of it. And another really important question that we cover as well in the workshop is, what do you wish you hadn't started? We all have these things. Again, no judgment here. Don't look at these things and feel like you're on your own and the only person who's maybe wasted some time on something that really has drained your energy and it would have been better spent somewhere else. Right? We all say yes to things that potentially we already knew in our gut weren't right. We all do it. So think about, what do you wish you hadn't started? Is there an offer that you labored away on and created just because everyone else was doing it? You know, have you been showing up religiously to a networking group that actually, you know, you're just not really enjoying it and you've never really liked breakfast meetings and you're not really sure why you've been doing it, right? What are you going to leave behind in 2025? And this actually is really key to rewilding your business. Remember, it's about cutting away what doesn't belong so that what does can really thrive. What are the things that have drained your energy in 2025 that if you stopped doing them, you would have space and time and more energy for what really moves the needle in 2026? Okay. So that's the first part of our process. It's the reflection piece. The next part is creating your 2026 vision. So once you've got really clear on what's staying and what's going, what are you bringing with you into 2026? What are you leaving behind in 2025? We get to do the really exciting bit, creating your vision for next year. And your vision isn't necessarily about setting massive goals that look really impressive. God forbid anyone thinks you're playing small, so you feel you've got to set these humongous goals. And then in the truth, underneath it, is that you don't actually care about those goals. You kind of did it to tick a box. It's not about that. It's about what genuinely lights you up in your business. Your vision should be about how you want to feel. It should be about how you want to feel, how you want to live, and what kind of impact you want to have. And once you know what those things are, then you can look at what does your business need to look like to support those things. So that's the big question for your vision is, what do you want your coaching business and your life to look like by the end of 2026? And not what it should look like or what would impress other people. What do you want? And the way we break this down is we think about it under 3 headings. The first one is, how do you want to live your life in 2026? So what are your lifestyle goals? How much time do you want to spend with your family on hobbies, traveling? What does good balance look like for you? Because your business should exist to support your life, not the other way around. That's something I've struggled with in the past and still do from time to time because I love what I do so much. I actually do struggle to find a good balance between making sure I'm not spending every waking moment on the business and neglecting other parts of my life. So think about, what do you actually want your life to look like next year? And then financially, what are your financial goals for next year? What is the income that you actually need to feel secure and supported? What would genuinely be enough for you? Not what some money mindset guru is trying to tell you must desire. Because I see a lot of that out there. It's almost making people feel guilty for not desiring oodles and oodles of money. I really believe that if you crave being incredibly wealthy, you are allowed that vision. Absolutely, write that big number down, as long as it's what you truly want for the right reasons. And so that's why I like to approach this through what do you need for next year for your life to feel a certain way? What do you need to feel abundant in every way? Because it's probably not 10 million pounds. So think about, what do I really need? What are my financial goals? And let them be yours. Own them. Don't listen to what someone else tells you you must desire. But equally, don't allow any kind of naysayers to tell you you're not being realistic either. This is hard for people pleasers. It's hard for people who constantly need validation, because what I'm asking you to do is to really tune in to your own intuition. I'm asking you to listen to the voice inside you that tells you what's right for you. It's not always easy, and I get that. The third category is your reputational goals. So what do you want to be known for by the end of 2026? What's the work that matters most to you? What's your unique contribution? And what do you want people to say about the impact you've had? That's a really good way to think about your reputational goals. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to be saying about how you've touched this planet? So when you're clear on those 3 categories, I want you to have a go at writing yourself a 1-sentence vision statement for next year. So it might be something like, by the end of 2026, I'm running a thriving coaching business, working exclusively with clients I adore, making an incredible impact while also having proper time for my family and my own well-being. Right? Beautiful. That makes me feel like, my God, yeah, I want to build the business that supports that vision. So make it yours, make it true for you, and make it something that when you read it out loud, ideally, you feel that little spark of, yes, that is it. That is the vision I want to build the business for. And The next phase is where a lot of planning, if I'm honest, falls apart because people set these amazing visions, have wonderful goals, very inspiring goals, but then nothing. And that happens for one very, very simple reason. It's because you don't break it down into the actual achievable, I know exactly what I need to do next steps. So that's what we're going to look at now. Your yearly vision needs to be broken down, and you can do this in lots of different ways. In the workshop, I'm going to really teach you my approach to doing this, which is very specific. It involves quarterly projects and monthly steps. So, it's a very strategic way of looking at your vision for next year, categorizing the things that are going to go towards making it a reality, and then breaking it down into projects, steps, and tasks, or, however you want to call it, milestones. There's lots of different ways you can plan it out. But effectively, there is a process to this that I take people through that works every time because it absolutely gets you crystal clear on what is the pathway to that vision. What are the actual things you're going to need to do by the end of each week, month, quarter that are going to come together to equal what you want to achieve by the end of 2026? When we try and do everything at once without really this broken down plan, we end up not really seeing anything through to the end because we do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we never quite manage to get the momentum to see any one project through to the end. And that's why I like to look at these quarterly projects, and it works really well. If this appeals to you, this theory around really breaking your year into quarters with 4 very distinct projects that you're going to work on, then I really recommend you come along to the workshop because, like I said, I'm going to take everyone through it step by step with slides, with a workbook, and you're going to be able to go away and do this for yourself, for your business. We look at the different areas of focus. So, what are the different projects that you want to take on next year that are going to contribute to that vision? Is there a project around your brand potentially? Maybe it's your positioning, your messaging, that kind of thing. Is it your business model? Is it actually what you're selling? Is it your packages, your signature framework? Is it your offers? Is it your pricing? Are those things that you want to concentrate on looking at next year? Is it your thought leadership? Is there something next year that you want to achieve in terms of up-leveling your visibility, your personal brand? Is it your marketing? Is next year the year that you build a cohesive marketing ecosystem with each little part, each moving part working together to actually bring in clients into your world, right? And then there are other things as well. There's client experience, there's your operations. What are the systems and processes that keep everything running in your business? There's lots of different projects that you can look at working on next year. So it's really thinking, okay, which of these needs the most attention next year to bring me towards my vision? And then the thing that, to be honest, is the actual needle mover in terms of getting things done. And that's the art of prioritizing. Because once you've got your strategic plan mapped out for the year, you understand what projects you're addressing when, what you're working on when, and how all of that comes together to bring the vision that you have to life. Once you've got the plan, you need to understand how you are going to prioritize each day, week, month, quarter. So in the workshop, I'm going to teach you a very simple framework for prioritization that works every time. This is not reinventing the wheel. It's nothing new, but it is something that if you actually get in the habit of using, you are going to find it a hell of a lot easier to prioritize your day, week, month, quarter. Okay? Getting very clear on what's important, what is going to move the needle is really the key. Because once you are clear on how you decide what's important and what's not important, it gets a lot easier to say no to the stuff that is just that noise, the stuff that is busy work that isn't really moving the needle. And we all know that that's often the reason that we don't hit our goals is because we've diverted our energy and attention to busy work that simply isn't really feeding what we're trying to achieve. Okay? So here's the last thing I want to share with you today, and that is that when you plan for your year, that plan is not rigidly set in stone. In fact, I would go as far as to say that if you set your plan in November or this year or even January next year, and you're still rigidly following that plan with no deviation whatsoever by December, with no adjustments, something's probably gone wrong. Let's be honest, businesses evolve. You evolve. The world around you is evolving, right? So the way we combat that to make sure that there's enough flex in our plan for our plan to make sense, for our plan to have some organic movement in it, right? The way we do that is that we have quarterly reviews built in. One action you could do today, book these quarterly reviews for your business into your calendar right now. So book one in for the end of March, one for the end of June, one for the end of September, one for the end of December. And treat these like having a meeting with your business. This is an idea that my dear, dear friend Deb Driscoll, who is the founder of the Be Her Academy and Collective, she's sitting down and having a meeting with your business. I love that vision, actually. I really like that vision, and where your business gets to have a voice and say, here's what I need from you in the next quarter. So sit down, have this meeting with your business, but ask yourself, what's working, what's not working, what needs to change, what next? And that's how you're going to stay aligned. That's how you're going to build a business that is growing with you, not despite you. Because that's what can happen if you become too rigid and too attached to your initial plan, right? So this kind of sustainable approach is what I know to work really, really well. Because building a coaching business, it isn't about one big push once a year. It's about showing up really consistently and making smart decisions at the beginning of the year or as you're planning for the next year. Making smart decisions based on what's worked and what hasn't worked this year and on what you have in your vision for your business. But then it's about making adjustments as you go and trusting yourself enough to change course if something's not working. Okay, so that is what I wanted to share with you today. That for me is the foundations of planning with purpose. So next week, in part 2 of this little two-parter, we're going to really talk about more of the mindset around who you need to be in your business. What is your business asking from you in terms of how you show up to bring that vision to life? Okay. So like I say, do join me for the Planning on Purpose workshop on November the 20th. It is being facilitated by the amazing Institute of Coaching Studies, my absolute number one recommendation for any coach who is undergoing their coach training, wants to take the next step. They also offer micro certifications in different very niche areas of coaching. It's incredible. The Institute is my absolute go-to, highly recommend. So I love being able to give these quarterly workshops for the Institute. It's one of my favorite things to do. And this planning one, we actually ran this last year for the Institute as well, and it got such good feedback. So I really haven't made a ton of changes for this year because this process works that well. So the link is going to be in the show notes to sign up for the workshop, and you'll also get a workbook to use as we go through it. Even if you can't make the workshop live, you will be sent a replay. So it's worth signing up, even if you can't make it live on the 20th. And as always, I would love you to share with me your reflections on this episode. In fact, I'm going to be more specific than that. Thinking about that first part of this episode where I was talking about reflecting on 2025, on what worked, what didn't work, what you wish you made time for, what you wish you hadn't started. I would love you to share with me info@jillmoakes.com. Share with me by email what your reflections are, what's come up. And if you can join me for the workshop, I would love, love, love to have you there. It's going to be a goodie. All right, part 2 coming next week. In the meantime, have a fabulous week, and I will see you back here same time, same place next week. Bye for now.